Deadpool 15 powers you never knew he had. The Merc with a mouth is famous for his wit, skills, and insanely regeneration abilities. These are the other powers he's had over the years. After 25 years in relative obscurity, you'd be forgiven if there were a few Deadpool powers you've never heard about. So whether you have your own mint condition copy of his first appearance in New Mutants number 98 or the 2016 film was your first exposure to the Regenerate and Degenerate, here are 15 Deadpool powers you probably didn't know he had. Number 15. Appearance manipulation. When Deadpool first debuted in his own ongoing series, writer Joe Kelly was still experimenting with his power set and gave him a few technological upgrades. One of these was his holographic image inducer that allowed him to change his appearance. Deadpool's cancer is in a constant state of regeneration due to his healing factor, which causes the skin on his face and body to look grossly deformed, so he's not exactly inconspicuous in public. Not to mention that anonymity is a serious benefit to a Merc for hire. With his image inducer, Deadpool could mask his appearance with the face, body, and clothing of someone less Freddy Krueger-like. Unfortunately, due to his fractured psyche, the image inducer had a tendency to flip between different looks every few seconds. Eventually, the idea was abandoned entirely and Wade Wilson was forced to live with the face of Ryan Reynolds crossed with a Shar-Pei. Number 14. Immortality. When most people think of superheroes with a healing factor, their mind tends to go straight to Wolverine. This is forgivable, as he's been around since 1974 and he's one of the few characters to appear in every media adaptation of the X-Men franchise, including film, television, and video games. But Deadpool's healing factor puts Wolverine to shame. He's been decapitated and dismembered by Carnage, the Hulk, and Wolverine. He's been blasted to bits by Cable. In Deadpool issue 5, he literally melted into a puddle and was swallowed up by Cable before being vomited back out and regenerating into his full form, as if it weren't already hard enough for him to die. In Deadpool Volume 1 issue 64, Thanos learns that Deadpool and the literal personification of death in the Marvel Universe are in love with each other. But Thanos has his own love affair with death, so he curses Deadpool with the inability to die to keep them from being together, making Deadpool literally immortal. Number 13. Super strength. Deadpool's healing factor has a number of interesting little side effects on his body, one of which is that his muscles seem to be inexhaustible and constantly repairing, so he's developed strength well beyond natural human limitations. He has been seen at various points lifting people off the ground or punching them high into the air with minimal effort. In Cable and Deadpool issue 13, by Fabian Nicieza with art by Patrick Zurcher, an autopsy reveals that he broke a man's neck instantly with his thumb and forefinger, an act that the doctors agree would require a superhuman amount of strength. However, his super strength isn't something that's showcased often, possibly because, relative to a lot of heroes in the Marvel Universe, it's not much to brag about. He's nowhere near the level of the Hulk or Juggernaut. He's not even quite on the level of Captain America, but he can snap a person's neck with 2 fingers, and that's more than Tony Stark or Hawkeye can do. Number 12. Polyglotism. At first glance, a reader might take Wade Wilson's goofy jokes and zany personality to mean that he's stupid. That's far from the truth, though. One of the benefits of being an international mercenary is that you pick up a few languages along the way. When Deadpool teamed up with Hawkeye in Hawkeye vs. Deadpool, Wade uses American Sign Language at times to communicate with Clint, who has been deaf since Matt Fraction's Hawkeye run. In Deadpool and the Mercs for Money, he speaks Spanish frequently to his Mexican teammate, Massacre, who only speaks Spanish. In Deadpool Team Up issue 1, he takes a trip to Japan and speaks Japanese throughout most of the mission in order to communicate with a clone dwarf version of himself called Whittle Wade, who only speaks Japanese. Writers throughout the years have also portrayed him to be fluent in German and Russian among other languages, so the number of languages he can actually speak is currently unknown. Number 11. Super stamina. Another interesting side effect of Deadpool's healing factor is his superhuman ability to never get tired. His muscular system produces far fewer fatigue toxins than a normal human being, so he can exert himself at peak capacity for several days before he begins succumbing to fatigue. But even if he were to tire out, his regeneration ability would quickly have him back at peak performance in a short amount of time. This is made clear throughout dozens of fights with Marvel's heaviest hitters, including the Hulk, Carnage, the Rhino, Spider-Man, and waves upon waves of zombies and aliens without ever slowing down or shutting up. Because of the boost from his healing factor, it's possible that Deadpool actually has a higher level of stamina than Captain America. The general consensus is that Cap can exert himself at peak capacity for several hours before getting tired, while Deadpool can exert himself for several days. Number 10. Super metabolism. Deadpool is well known for his obsession with Mexican food, specifically tacos and chimichangas. He is frequently seen sitting in his underwear on the couch surrounded by pizza boxes, half-eaten boxes of donuts, and mega-sized sodas. In Deadpool Volume 2 Issue 16 by Daniel Way and Paco Medina, he cooks up 372,844 pancakes just because he's bored. It gives a whole new meaning to his nickname, the Merc with a Mouth. Despite eating his own body weight as often as he likes, on the next page, he's always back to having the shredded, muscle-bound body of, say, Ryan Reynolds. Sadly, it's a blessing and a curse. Thanks to Deadpool's super metabolism, he's unable to get drunk no matter how much alcohol he sucks down. As proven in Deadpool, the video game, when if you downed enough beers, he'll turn to the camera and say, "Enough with the damn beer. Healing factor won't let me get drunk anyway." Tough break, Wade. Number 9 Perception of our reality. Fourth wall breaking. Most of Deadpool's powers aren't anything unique to the Marvel Universe. Super strength and an accelerated healing factor are practically as common as superheroes themselves. But one ability that is unique to Deadpool is his awareness of being a fictional character. Since Deadpool Volume 1, he's referenced previous issues, told other characters their lives exist in a comic book, and he's even rewritten reality with a pen like a scene out of something Bugs Bunny would appear in. As well, his perception of our reality is present in every form of media he's existed in. In 2016's Deadpool, he speaks directly to the audience. In Deadpool, the video game, he calls the video game studio to argue about the script. In the prose novel, Deadpool, he even describes the author's life as he's writing the book. When you think about it, knowing he's the main character in his own story is kind of the ultimate superpower. He can enter nearly any situation without fear, because he knows they're not going to kill off the star of the show. Number 8 Super Agility. Deadpool's mercenary training and experience, combined with the way his accelerated healing factor affects his muscular system, gives him superhuman agility equal to the likes of Spider-Man or Captain America. In fact, you may have noticed that Deadpool and Spider-Man share more than a few similarities. You're not alone, and it's something the writers and artists are well aware of. One of those major similarities is their ability to flip around a room like circus acrobats, and that's no accident. In Deadpool Volume 1 Issue 11 by Joe Kelly and Pete Woods, he and Blind Owl are sent back to 1967's Amazing Spider-Man Issue 47. Pete Woods, with Nathan Massengill on inks, reworked much of the original art, superimposing Deadpool into Spider-Man's place in his epic battle with Kraven the Hunter. His super agility has come in handy numerous times with adversaries far stronger, faster, and more powerful than himself, including the Hulk, Wolverine, and in Deadpool Kills the Marvel Universe, he even manages to kill Spider-Man. Number 7 An Army of One. Have we mentioned that Wade Wilson is literally an insane person? And we're not just talking about the fact that he believes he's a comic book character or that he commits acts of homicide with the lighthearted whimsy of a child playing with puppies. During the entirety of Deadpool Volume 2, among other works, Wade was written as having multiple distinct personalities. At least one of these was due to the villain Madcap taking up residence in Wade's brain for a while in the form of little white dialogue boxes. As one might imagine, having multiple brains provides a powerful tactical advantage, namely the ability to analyze and think through multiple aspects of a battle and potential strengths and weaknesses of each strategy at the same time. This is in addition to Deadpool's already brilliant tactical mercenary mind, which combines to make him a formidable opponent even without the accelerated healing factor. Number 6 Optic, Blastic, and Sword Talons. We know 2009's X-Men Origins. Wolverine is the last thing you want to see in anything related to Deadpool. But the fact is that this movie gave him some abilities that we'd never seen him have before. This Deadpool possessed an amalgamation of powers from the dozens of kidnapped mutants on whom the Weapon X program experimented in the film. Aside from making his teleportation ability organic and giving him the heretofore unseen ability to shut up by literally sealing his mouth shut, this Deadpool got optic laser blasts from Cyclops and Baraka-style retractable sword blades implanted in his arms, probably meant to mirror Wolverine. Incidentally, the Deadpool that appears at the end of the movie is not actually played by Ryan Reynolds, but rather Scott Adkins. Reynolds, being a longtime Deadpool mega fan, left the production over creative disputes, so Adkins stepped in to take over for the finale. That character is even listed as Weapon XI on IMDb, so if you want, you can pretend it's a whole different character from Wade Wilson and that Stryker was lying. Number 5 Psychic Resistance. Another benefit to having multiple distinct personalities inside his brain, as well as being just generally kind of insane, is that it makes it very difficult for psychic characters to get into his head, so when they do, they can't really get a grasp of what's going on. To double down on this ability, Deadpool's cancer was also accelerated in the experiment that gave him his healing factor, so his brain cells are perpetually dying and regenerating in equilibrium. In other words, psychics can't really break in, and frankly, they would have to be crazy to even try. Over the years, he has resisted the telepathic probings of Professor X and Emma Frost. Even his longtime teammate, Cable, couldn't get into Wade's head. However, as with many of Deadpool's abilities, this one seems to come and go. During his time in Rick Remender's Uncanny X-Force Volume 1, Psylocke was able to telepathically link Deadpool to his teammates, and he was even mind-controlled by the Shadow King briefly to attack the rest of X-Force. Number 4. Anti-Venom. Deadpool has had several run-ins with the symbiotic aliens that created Venom and Carnage, which generally take over the mind and body of their host to make them vicious killers. Even Peter Parker went dark for a while when the symbiote that would later attach itself to Eddie Brock to become Venom invaded his mind. But Deadpool's mind isn't like everyone else's. Another advantage of having several personalities rolling around upstairs is that the symbiotes can't take over his brain. During 2016's Deadpool, back in Black Limited series, after the Venom symbiote leaves Peter Parker, it comes crawling back to Deadpool. Rather than going homicidal, Deadpool gets the added strength, speed, and tentacles of the symbiote along with the symbiote webbing that it picked up from Spider-Man. There's a moment, just after the symbiote attaches itself to Deadpool, where he's about to devour the brains of Machine Man before he snaps out of it and remembers that Machine Man is his compounder and contains himself. Then he chops all the bad guys in the room to pieces, but that's just normal Deadpool behavior. Number 3. Asexual reproduction. Every great action hero eventually has to go head-to-head with a dark version of themselves. When you sign up for superpowers, you're practically begging to run into an evil clone somewhere down the line. Superman had his Bizarro, for example, while Spider-Man had Man-Spider and Venom and his clones, and Deadpool had Evil Deadpool. In Deadpool Volume 2 Issue 44, written by Daniel Way and drawn by Carlo Barberi, Wade Wilson learns that his former therapist and current stalker, Ella Whitby, was keeping a collection of his dismembered body parts wrapped up in her fridge. In a fit of disgust, Deadpool chucks them into a garbage bag and tosses them into a dumpster. But the next morning, two unfortunate garbage men find that, thanks to that extreme healing factor of his, the parts have healed back together and evil Deadpool was born. Therefore, if he was ever so inclined, Deadpool could create armies of himself just by hacking his own limbs off and piecing them together like the world's grossest jigsaw puzzle. Number 2. He can summon his demon wife. In the most recent volumes of Deadpool, Wade Wilson has not only learned that he's a father, but he's also entered into the bonds of unholy matrimony with Shikla, vampire queen of the underworld. In other words, whenever he doesn't want to go into a fight alone, he has a direct line to someone who can turn into a massive fire-breathing beast, or summon an army of demons and monsters at her command. In the Marvel Infinite comic Deadpool, The Gauntlet, written by Jerry Duggan and Brian Posehn, she wields the power of Hellfire, controls Blade with an enslavement beam, and attempts to suck the life force out of Deadpool with her succubus powers. In Joe Kelly and Ed McGuinness' Spider-Man, Deadpool Issue 5, after Deadpool kills Peter Parker, she brings him back to life only for Deadpool to shoot him again. While she makes it clear that it drains a lot of her power to do this, it's quite an asset to have someone at your beck and call who can resurrect the dead. Number 1. Teleportation. Another one of Deadpool's discontinued powers came from a teleporter device designed by his buddy, Weasel. That's right, X-Men Origins. Wolverine didn't just pull that power out of nowhere and give it to Deadpool. Someone involved with that movie actually knew something about Deadpool's power set. As you can imagine, having a character who's basically invincible, with ninja-like hand-to-hand combat skills and an infinite arsenal of firearms and lethal blades, who can also teleport at the press of a button, kind of makes things a little too easy for him. Whenever a character is too overpowered, he gets boring fast. Therefore, it wasn't long before writer Joe Kelly decided to have the teleporter start to malfunction beyond repair, and he just never got a new one since. To be fair, during Cable and Deadpool, he was temporarily bonded to Cable's Botaslide teleportation ability, meaning he would show up whenever Cable decided to use it or vice versa. However, this was usually used to get the duo into trouble rather than out of it. Are there any other powers Deadpool has had over the years that we forgot to mention? Be sure to let us know in the comments.